After months of conflict, the world may finally be seeing a diplomatic breakthrough. The United States and Iran have announced a framework peace agreement that could end the war, reopen the Strait of Hormuz and bring relief to global energy markets. Oil prices have fallen, global stocks have surged, but even as Washington celebrates and Tehran signals cautious acceptance, major questions remain. Is the Strait of Hormuz really open? What are Iran's leaders saying? How is Europe reacting? And what are satellite images and ship tracking data telling us about the real situation on the ground? Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX Deep Dive. I'm Uday Pratap Singh. Well, we are going to be decoding this today. The agreement announced by President Donald Trump and confirmed by Iranian officials is a framework, understanding rather than a final treaty. The deal envisions an immediate halt to hostilities, reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, a 60-day window for negotiations on Iran's nuclear program, discussions on sanctions relief, release of frozen Iranian assets subject to future conditions, and a formal signing is expected in Switzerland later this week. And this is where the story gets interesting. Publicly, Iran's government is presenting the deal as a victory for resistance rather than a concession. Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister, Kazem Garibabadi, said the text has been finalized and will be signed on Friday, June 19th in Geneva, Switzerland. He added a permanent and immediate end to the war has been declared on all fronts. President Trump also said the U.S. naval blockade of Iran would stand down. While the text of the memorandum has not been released, Iranian negotiators say the U.S. has agreed not to impose any new sanctions on Iran until a final deal is reached. All U.S. and UN sanctions on Iran would be lifted according to an agreed timeline and timetable. The U.S. will waive oil sanctions on Iran for a specified period and release $25 billion in Iran's frozen assets. Iran has also said that Washington, along with regional allies, will prepare a reconstruction and development plan for Iran to be agreed with Tehran within 60 days. Even more interestingly, Tehran agrees that it will neither produce nor acquire nuclear weapons. Pending a final agreement, Iran would maintain the current status of its nuclear program, refraining from further uranium enrichment and expansion of nuclear facilities. Iran also says that the U.S. has agreed to allow Iran to dilute its stockpile of highly enriched uranium on Iranian soil under a future comprehensive agreement. Iran's nuclear program, uranium enrichment activities, and mechanisms for handling its stockpile of highly enriched uranium would be negotiated within 60 days of the memorandum and addressed in a final agreement. Coming to the Strait of Hormuz, the most important energy choke point on the planet, roughly 20% of global oil and LNG trade passes through this narrow waterway between Iran and Oman. The deal's central promise is that Hormuz will reopen. But there is a major difference between a political announcement and operational reality. Washington says shipping will resume rapidly. Tehran has indicated that reopening will occur under its own arrangements and timeline. Meanwhile, European diplomats want unconditional access. Ship tracking services and maritime monitors show that traffic has not yet returned to normal. In fact, many shipping companies are still waiting. Insurers have not fully restored cover. Tanker operators remain cautious. And more than 100 vessels are still reportedly stuck or waiting in the Gulf region. Reuters reports that only a very limited number of vessels have begun moving through the strait after the agreement announcement. Maritime experts say the problem isn't just political, it's physical. Ensuring the strait of... There is one word, in fact, that dominates the maritime discussions. Mines. Industry officials warn that mine clearance operations may take weeks until naval authorities can certify safe passage. Many shipping companies are unlikely to resume normal operations. In fact, major Asian and European shipping firms have indicated that they want tangible security guarantees before fully returning to the route. So Hormuz may be open on paper, but in commercial terms, it is not yet fully open. Europe's reaction can be summed up in two words: relief and caution. The UK, France, Germany, and Italy have all welcomed the agreement. Their message, though, is simple: keep the diplomacy going, prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons, ensure free navigation through Hormuz, avoid another regional escalation. European leaders have also offered support for future maritime security arrangements in the Gulf. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas has said Europe stands ready to help build a long-term solution. International media outlets are also largely treating the deal as a major geopolitical turning point, but not yet a complete success. The main themes across foreign coverage are: the details are still unclear. Many reports emphasize that key provisions have not yet been fully published and that questions remain over sanctions, nuclear controls, and enforcement mechanisms. Hormuz is not yet back to normal, with foreign media noting that commercial shipping remains cautious despite political announcements. Israel remains a wild card, with several reports highlighting continuing disagreements over Lebanon and Israeli military operations. creating uncertainty over whether broader regional calm can hold. Finally, this is a ceasefire, not a final settlement. The consensus across international reporting is that the next 60 days will determine whether this becomes a historic peace accord or merely another temporary pause. Joining us now is Major General Dhruv Katoch, Senior Defence Expert. Major General Katoch, thank you for being with us today on NewsX. How do you react to this agreement? Is it a sign that finally peace is on the anvil?
Thank you, Uday. I'm not sure if peace is on the anvil, but I think hostilities will cease for quite some time now. The firing which we were seeing, the missiles flying to and fro, I think that is not going to occur, and the ships in the Strait of Hormuz are not going to be attacked. But peace can only come after a final settlement. So at this point, I think what we can say is the ceasefire will hold, peace we will see. And it's very interesting when I just heard you when you were talking about the Strait of Hormuz. I think Iran has made it very clear that opening, firstly, the demining operations themselves will only start after the deal is signed in Switzerland. That means nothing is going to happen before Friday, and that is going to be the start point. So as of now, I don't expect any of the ships to move. But there's another important caveat, and that this relates to insurance firms. Now, all the ships which move, they have to be insured. And the insurers are very reluctant to insure any of the ships, till such time that there is a fear of mines.
Yes.
While the ceasefire is on, and the tensions are gone, which means that the global oil prices will not rise, and they will perhaps they go down even further. But that is the best as of now we can hope for. Uday.
Now, Israel is not very happy, it seems, with this agreement. Could that be a hitch?
No, Israel is certainly very unhappy, and the defense minister has made a statement to that effect. I can empathize with the Israelis because the Iranians have been actually arming the Hezbollah and the Hamas, and those two terrorist organizations are being used against Israel. But let us face the facts. Hamas has been practically neutralized, and Hezbollah has been greatly weakened. And the amount of support which Iran can give to Hezbollah henceforth, I think, will be restricted. So Israel, while they are not very happy with the outcome, they wanted a complete surrender of Iran, which is not going to take place.
Yes.
I think they will fall in line. And I don't think that the Israelis will up the ante as of now.
All right. My final question then to you, Major General Katoch, is when could we then expect shipping to go back to normal in the Strait of Hormuz?
In my view, I think let us take 2 weeks from now, that at least the trickle which is there will be much more than a trickle from single digits, which are cautiously moving around. It'll get on to double digits. But for full shipping to resume, I don't think anything less than a month or 2 months would be a realistic figure.
All right, Major General Katoch, thank you very much for joining us with your perspective on this segment.